What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again this week. Super excited to talk to another incredible action-taking member of the Flip Lifestyle community as we go through their journey with them on their quest to start, build, and grow an online income of their own to make that money online. And my guest today is somebody that's doing a great job building this thing out, Dana Morrison. Welcome to the program, brother.
Gosh, Shane, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm pumped, man, because we have a coaching team and we have a community team and we got all these, and I always get reports. I'm like, what's going on? Give me somebody who's crushing it, who's taking massive action. And we were talking about this the other day, and just everybody put your name in the little thread, right?
Oh my
so I was
goodness,
like, all right,
I'm humbled.
He's on the podcast. Bring him on. So real quick, let's catch up the audience for everybody out there that's listening. Tell them about you. Tell them about your background real quick, like what you've done for a career up until this point before you started building your online business. And then tell us about your online business idea. Like, what is it you want to build? What kind of community do you want to build out in the world?
Sure. So I grew up in Maine, on near the coast, not on the coast, near the coast in Maine. Met my wife in 1988. It was a long distance relationship for like 5 years. We got married. She was 19. I was 21. I actually asked her to marry me when she was 18. And after we were married, we went down to Lynchburg, Virginia. And I had always had this interest in tech. And I was going to Liberty University, and I wanted to take their theological studies with an emphasis on youth ministry. That was a passion that the Lord put in my heart. And at the same time, I wanted to take a minor, which was comp sci. And the education system.
That's a heck of a Venn diagram right there. Right? Computer science, theology. Right?
Oh my goodness. Think about that.
Interesting dude.
Yeah. So what happened was I got a D in my first programming class, which was Pascal, which is a language nobody was even really using at the time. So this obsolete language. And then I also got a D in my pre-calculus class. And you know what you get when you get Ds in your minor? You get to go to the dumb class. They send you to study classes like you don't know how to study. And I'm looking around this classroom and I'm thinking, I'm sitting in this classroom for studying. And obviously none of these students want to be here. Like you could just tell by looking at the students, like these guys are not invested in their future. I am invested in my future. So I learned how to study, but I ended up dropping my comp sci minor. I was like, God, I'm just going to focus on the youth ministry aspects. But that burning passion for tech was still in me all the way back from childhood with a Commodore 64 and a little modem that got me in trouble almost with the law at one point.
You might be interested to know that Jocelyn is also a computer science dropout.
Oh, awesome.
She is. She started out with computer science. She was like you. She got the little computer back in the 80s, and and she was doing the MS-DOS prompts and all the techie stuff, building her own stuff.
Right.
And and for some, she took a couple classes and she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go this other direction. And she got like a marketing degree is what she ended up with. But that's cool. So you went into theology, and you went into the ministry. And then I think you told me earlier that like some kids helped you build a computer or something. And that's what kind of re-sparked the engine.
Yeah. So from the youth group, you got this drive in you, right? And you have to satisfy it. Well, I needed a computer. And so I got with some kids in the youth group and I said, show me what to buy. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, these kids are showing me all the components to buy to build this machine. It was a 40 megahertz computer
powerhouse
with 240 megabytes of storage.
Oh, man.
It's like we have pictures that are larger than that now. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I think I got a rock here on my desk, and I think that has more memory than what you just told me from your first computer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So they have something in common. You can throw each of them through a window and break a window with it. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
So from there, I took off. Like, as far as it was an insatiable appetite for tech. And then years later, I graduate from Liberty. We end up going back to Maine. I get out to the camp that my wife and I met at. Originally, we worked there. I did some youth ministry stuff by being the program director at the camp for many years. But after the first year there, I was looking I got to find something in the off season for work. and I heard that a school was hiring, they called it an IT coordinator. And I went in and sat down with the superintendent, and he started asking me these questions. What can you tell me about our frame relay? Which, Shane, that's basically like the 56K dial-up modem for your entire, which is crazy. So I'm like, I don't know anything about it, but I can learn. And he was like, well, what do you know about this operating system? Windows 3.11, Windows for workgroups. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. I know some stuff about Windows. I can learn. What do you know about networking? Nothing, but I can learn. And then he called me back the next day. I got the job. I was like, must have been a really small pool of candidates.
We picked the guy that knew nothing. That's what we picked. But he can learn. It is a school. That's what you're supposed to do there. You're supposed to learn.
Oh, that's
they gave you the opportunity. Isn't it funny? Like, isn't it funny how like you can be like in the right place at the wrong time? It's funny you say you're from Maine, because Jocelyn and I have actually been up to Portland, Maine, and place is beautiful. It's one of my favorite trips we've ever taken. We stayed at like this real fancy place downtown. It was just awesome. It was one of the best weeks we've ever had, and so it was beautiful. But when I got to Portland, Maine, we were there. We were renting a car. And we were going up to Enterprise, and we were waiting in line to rent a car. And this guy in front of me was like, we were listening, and he's like, they didn't have a reservation for him. They didn't know what was going on. and he was on a trip. He was supposed to book a trip to Portland, Oregon. And he accidentally just didn't even notice. He picked Portland, Maine. He bought the ticket. He went and got in. He just wasn't paying attention. And all the circumstances. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally on the right timing, wrong place, right? He was just in the wrong place, man, a totally wrong place. And like, It was the same thing. Like you go to college and it's like, oh man, I really want to do this comp sci, but for some reason the timing wasn't right. But then the timing became right when the kids showed you how to build the computer that sprung you into that career. And this is actually what I love about the Flip Lifestyle community is I hear this story over and over and over again. People always get into one thing, or they put it off, or they don't do the thing. And it's like, that's okay. It's just sometimes the timing is not right to do what you really, really want to do, feel like you should do. But then when it reemerges, when it's ready, and it's like, oh, now I can take action on this. So you were able to take action on building the computer. You were able to take action on going into
absolutely.
IT. And now it's
something unlocks you.
Yes,
it's like keys.
Yes, and we see it with 2020 hindsight. That's when we see it. Like none of us can see it in the mix, and I think that's where we get that feeling of, it's too late for me. I should have done this earlier. All those fears.
You're talking
and
about my avatar now.
Exactly. Right. That's where it comes from, though. Yeah. And if we would all just kind of reframe it as no. It's always the right time. It's just when it's the right choice. And if you've made choices in the past where you've put off a dream, you've put off something else, that's okay. You still have today and tomorrow to make the choice to go after your dream, bro.
So I was interviewing a coworker of mine, Chris Tucker. Okay, not that Chris Tucker, this Chris Tucker.
Right.
So he moved out here from California, but he said something on a podcast. It's posted from last Saturday, I believe, and he said we have to forgive our old self for the inaction and decide to take action in the moment. I was like, oh my goodness, Chris, that was an amazing thing to say.
I'm stealing that. I'll give Chris credit twice, and then I'm going to claim that's mine. I made it up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have to forgive
ourselves for inaction,
for our past inaction. Forgive our past self for past inaction, and take it.
Decide
so that we
can take action today.
That's an incrable quote, dude.
Isn't that
it's
great?
So true, man.
I asked him, I said, where'd you get that? He says, oh, that's a Chris Tucker original. I was like, okay, man.
All right, man. It's Chris Tucker's until I steal it and say it's mine. That's how quotes work. That's the rule. Yeah. In the podcasting, like I'll give you credit twice and then it's mine. I get to say it was mine. It was totally my idea. And that's kind of what led you to your idea. And I think it's kind of what leads everybody to their idea, really, is when they finally take action, they finally do it. They're like, oh my gosh, I wish that I could talk to my past self and mentor my past self so they could make this decision to do their dream, to do their career change, to do whatever it is sooner. But what happens is we can't do that. We can't go back in time, but we can start an online business with all our knowledge, with all our wisdom, with all our passion that can help versions of us in the past, our students, our community members, the people that we serve. And that's
where we're at.
Exactly.
Exceed.
Go
we want
beyond
them to
it,
go
avoid the
beyond.
mistakes.
I want people to come through my community to go beyond my years of experience and wisdom. So
yeah, man, I learned about investing when I was about 35, when I started like really like, oh gosh, I can invest and make more money this way, like stocks and real estate or whatever.
Yeah.
And but I was sitting, I went to my coffee shop downtown yesterday actually, and I saw my nephew. He was in, and he's 25 years old. He's about to graduate law school. And I was like, hey, I'll buy you breakfast, man. Let's go sit down and talk for an hour. I hadn't seen him in a month, or whatever. And he lives in another town. And we were just talking about finances, and he was telling me about his like plans and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's what I did when I was 25. I was like, let me show you what I'm doing now. It's something you can do at 25 that I didn't discover until 35, but I wish I'd known at 25. And he ate it alive, man. And I was just thinking, like, if he uses 1% of that conversation, his financial stuff, he's getting ready to get married. They don't want to have kids for a little while. So like, he will be so much farther ahead of me because I didn't have anybody to tell me about that. And it was just really cool to see the power of being able to reach back. Like, he is a version of myself. He's 25, about to get married, just getting out of school. That's exactly where I was when me and Jocelyn got married. And if someone had just told me 2 or 3 things differently, then I could have made different choices with my time. So tell me now about your online business. So and what you're doing for IT professionals, what you're doing, how you're taking this experience knowledge, and what are you going to do for people out in the marketplace?
And to go back just a step, Shane. So I'm 50, and I look at what brought me to this place as a maturation process that God has been working in me to bring me to a place where there's the realization that now I'm supposed to invest in other people. And I'll tell you, the night before I pulled the trigger on this program, I think this will resonate with some of your community. The night before I pulled the trigger on this program, I was like, God, what do I do? And I was really struggling because I knew, like, I had these ideas and goals and dreams, but also there's that tension in our hearts because it's like, can I take this first step, and what does this mean, and what's this going to look like? And so I was begging God for an answer, and he gave me Psalm 1. And there's a tree in Psalm 1 that produces fruit. Is that tree Christ? Is that tree us? It doesn't matter, because if it's Christ, then we're the fruit that comes off it. We end up in the ground. The seed ends up being planted. Guess what? A tree grows out of it. So I was like, okay, God, are you trying to tell me that I'm supposed to invest in people? So then I came inside, and I sat down at my desk, and this is like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh shoot, I was supposed to read Deuteronomy 26 today. So I read Deuteronomy 26, and guess what it's about? Giving your first fruits. And worship, coming to worship in God. And so it was like, I told my wife, I said, I'm supposed to do this. God is telling me right now. It gives me chills to think about it. God is giving me this message right now that says, take that 25, 27 years experience that you have in tech and invest it and bring me the fruit of it.
Wow. That's great,
to impact people's lives.
Was it? So this was right before. This was right before you joined the coaching program.
This is the day before. This was 8 weeks ago.
Wow, man!
8 weeks ago Monday.
That's incredible, dude. Yeah, man. So then you get in there, and we're all like, step by step, first step, second step, third step. Here's your next step. You're like, well, that pretty much that's what was supposed to happen, man.
So he's like, be obedient to what I have put in front of you. So it's like, when I think about the challenges, I have to reflect back to, I have to be obedient to what God has put in my heart. So if I deny that, I'm really kind of denying his power in my life. So
yeah, our greatest gift to me of life, the greatest gifts we have in life. I think people get focused on talents, abilities, skills, whatever that is. That's fine. Those are all really important. But man, our story is the greatest gift we have. Like, no one has lived through what we've lived except us. But there's a collective wisdom in your story, like in your 25 years of experience, that you can bring up to, and all of it adds up. Like even you building that computer is a part of the story. Like, that's an incredible part of your story. When you start pitching this membership, you've got to tell that. You need to start probably there, then go back to the prologue where you were failing out of IT and then come back to the future, because that story is so captivating. Like, I was a tech guy. I love tech, but I didn't know about tech. And I actually had to get I had to get my youth group kids to teach me how to even put together my first computer. And like, that's where the story starts, because now nobody that you sell anything to can have an excuse, because you started with high school kids teaching you how to put together a computer. That's where your tech journey started.
I first heard your story on the Benham Brothers Expert Ownership podcast.
Oh, nice.
And so I think that had aired maybe a couple weeks or something like that before I ended up reaching out and getting in touch with Manny.
There you go, man. See what I'm saying? So like,
take action.
But where does my story start? I'm a school teacher, right? It starts way before I'm an entrepreneur. It starts with the spark that lit the fire. And like, I don't tell this story a lot on the podcast, but we talk about unfair advantages a lot in what we teach. Like, what are your unfair advantages? And your story is your greatest unfair advantage. The biggest thing that I had to become a podcaster, like, my podcast has had millions of downloads, right? And I never would have expected that this many people would have ever heard my voice in the world. You know, we talked off air, like, ChatGPT knows who I am. Like, you can literally write a letter like Shane Sams from Flip Lifestyle and it will do it, like, because my podcast's out there. But the reason I was able to get into podcasting so fast is because when I was in high school, I was not a good student. I'm like a 2.0 guy. I barely made it out of there, people. I'm telling you, I skid in sideways in college. Like, I just barely made it out of everything, every degree I've got. But one thing, I really leaned into things I loved in high school because I just hated math and all the other stuff. So I did pretty good in history. I always signed up for every PE class I could take because I like to lift weights. But I found media. There was a media class, and we had an old quadruple VCR editing deck that they used to use at like local TV stations in the 80s, right? And we had got a grant, and they got that. And I learned how to edit audio and video in that class. And little did I know that, you know, I was 16, 17 when I learned how to do that. 20 years later, when I was like, podcasting, that's interesting, I was like, oh, and I looked at I downloaded Audacity, this first software that I
used
had.
that actually for my podcast.
There you go. Yeah. But I looked at it and I started seeing the tracks that I used to use on the old VCR tape deck. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to do this. And like, that kernel of something from my past was actually the first step in being able to succeed faster in my current journey. So like, when you're telling your story and when you're starting to pitch this thing, like, that's really important, is to understand where the starting point really is, not where the starting point you think it is. And also the first 5 minutes of your story, the person has to see either themselves or a worse version of themselves. Like, well, I'm way ahead of where this guy started. And that's what's going to give them the hope to overcome the fear to take the first step in what they do. It's part of like what I call a story pitch. You know, the story driven pitch, where you actually start the story and you give them a version of you that is worse than them, so that they can see that they can go ahead of it. So in your podcast and all this stuff that you started, you're going to help IT professionals like transition into IT? Is this like second career people? Like, what are you doing with that?
I could be. I found in my avatar, there's little nuggets, little trails in there. Some people are looking to shift careers. They want to become an IT professional, but they don't understand what first steps they might take to get there. Okay. Some people are just high school students, maybe just graduating high school, and are trying to figure out where they're going to go. Some people are probably on the track where they're going to go to college. And I know from talking to people who are in the education system, I mean, there's a lot of glazed over eyes in school. So where does their community come from? From peers, or somebody who's already ahead of them, who's helping pull them forward? Because mentorship, coaching, those things, we know it's like gas on the fire. So what's resonating in you, it gives it an opportunity to accelerate very quickly when you're plugged into a community of like-minded people that are on the same path. If you just sign up for an IT class and show up at your, community college or university or whatever, then you might be sitting in a classroom where only about 25% of the students care.
Yeah. Yeah.
They might be there because they want to be there for the parties and their parents are paying for their education, or somebody told them they might be a good fit for IT,
Yeah, for sure. I'm listening to this. I think we need to this is the first pause we need to have here and stop right here on this avatar thing, because it's going to inform all of our decisions. I get that your thing could be good for all of these people, these groups. But I actually just coached a really awesome student. Her name's Nicole Whitworth. She's one of our great success stories in the Flip Lifestyle community. Nicole and Daniel, her husband, came in and they wanted to help nurses pass nursing school and become nurses. So it's a similar thing. Like, she's helping people get into a career path. Her thing's nursing, your thing's IT. So it's the same thing, same framework, whatever. And she did really well. She went after those college students, those people going through it. But she realized something. Actually, we realized it recently. We were just discussing this like last week, is that her best students were the non-traditional students who always had a hunger for nursing and wanted to go back and become a nurse. Those were her best students that paid the most, that paid on time, that paid every month, that were really serious, that went down that rabbit hole. They already had money because they already had a career. And so money wasn't an object to be able to go pay a monthly fee or a coaching program or whatever. And I believe the best possible path for you to try first here, I think you should eliminate these other avatars and go after that person who's had the burning desire for tech and wants to switch careers. One, your story directly speaks to that story. Okay.
Right.
You can lightly touch on, in college, I was the only serious person, which could draw in a little bit of a, imagine your avatar is circles. You have your first avatar is the bullseye, then you have the second ring out, then the third ring out.
Totally agree.
We want the bullseye first.
Yeah.
I don't think you should say a word about high school or college, almost any, and you should just be like, here was my story. If that's you, then you need to come here. And it's going to make everything easier, because now like, well, how old were you when you got into that job with the high school?
26.
26. So really, you're looking for people.
I was 26. Yeah.
All right. So let's just say late 20s, right? Now look at this person. Okay. It's late 20s, probably to early 40s, maybe not quite to 50 yet. That's going to be able to make this switch. You got a nice range there, maybe 28 to 48. Okay, that we now when we're thinking about our emails and we're thinking about our launch strategy and we're thinking about our podcasts, we want people in that space so that people hear themselves. But here's what else you've got. You got a kid maybe who went to college, got out at about 22, 23, 24, either went into IT and failed without mentorship and really regretted it, or went into another career like being a youth pastor and then was ready, like, no, I need to get into this tech thing. My burning desire is there. So now they're closer to your original story, which means they're closer to purchase. They're closer to the sale. So if we could dial in that avatar right now and just say that you're going to get those kids eventually. Later on, you can expand out and have a college marketing campaign that really gets that. Are you sick of sitting a bunch of losers that don't really care about their education? Do you need a mentor to get you into IT faster? That's fine, right? But I would focus on the second career first. I think it's just a perfect story.
Yeah,
beautiful age range.
Can I speak to that a little bit? Because here's some one-liners. This is when I was doing my avatar research, what I was really diving into, I read a lot of YouTube comments, because there's a lot of IT videos out there.
Sure.
And IT career questions and all sorts of stuff. So people are going to these and they're posting their comments and their questions. And some get responses and some don't. But this is the thread. This is the common thread that I saw, Shane. There's fear. I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. And I'm not smart enough. Those were the common. And I put a survey out there and they echoed exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And I would even listening to that data anecdotally, like, right. The one that like read those again real quick. Read that bulleted list.
There's fear of taking a first step. I'm not, and that fear seemed to be driven by, I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I'm too young, and I'm not smart enough.
Okay. I honestly think the outlier there is too young, because like everything else is kind of related. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, if I have a fear, maybe I'm not smart enough, comes from, yeah, but I didn't study the tech. I didn't get into tech immediately. And as tech passed me by, I'm too old. You see what I'm saying? Like, I've already went down one path. Like, the too young is almost that might even be a completely different business model, because too young means I've probably graduated with my IT degree and I can't get a job because I ain't got enough experience. So what are we doing now? Are we helping people with their freaking first resume? Like, that's lame. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really mindset stuff. That's just like, gosh, that's a chicken or the egg problem. That's not like actually helping them into stuff. But I'm too old. I don't know if I've got it's not just I'm not smart enough. It's like, has the tech passed me by because I didn't go down this rabbit hole the first? It feels like to me when I listen to that anecdotally, it's all anecdotally because we're pulling this out of YouTube comments.
That's right.
You know, but it feels like the avatar skews older for who's actually going to be able to pay you for this.
I think you're right. And the fear side of that too seems to like, I'm older. I'm missing out on something. If I'd have done this 10 years ago, I'd be in a different place.
And you can totally speak to that. Like, see, you don't even have to do sales and marketing. And I think this is probably something I don't teach enough. When you're creating your avatar, the story that you're going to tell them has to speak to that avatar. Like, it has to imprint on them. And the closer you can get your story to theirs, the better. Like think about this story that you're going to tell. I wanted to go into tech, but I didn't. I still found a career that I liked. I found my way back to tech. That's a very archetypal story. It's very general. It's very broad. There's probably millions of people that probably fit into that exact category, right? Now, when you tell a kid your story like this, like, imagine you're telling two audiences this story. One of them is full of 24-year-olds, okay? And one of them is full of 34-year-olds. And you're like, yeah, man. And let's say the 24-year-olds haven't even graduated college yet. They're just they're almost there. And you're like, yeah, man, I went out, became a youth pastor. Like, these guys are still in youth group. They can't relate to a guy who went out and was a youth pastor, right? True. Yeah. So it makes sense. But now these other people are like, but then I got into this. I went 5 or 6 years, and man, I had this burning desire for tech. And then, and this is a good way to check if your story is resonating with the avatar you're creating. If you can ask questions like, do you know what I mean, at parts of your story, and your avatar can affirmatively answer back yes, then you are telling the correct story to the correct avatar, right? So if you say, man, I went and got a job out of college that wasn't my first choice. Do you know what I mean? Another way to say that is, have you been there, right? Like, I felt this burning desire that I got into the wrong career and I wanted to go change my career. Have you been there before? Yes, I have been there before. Those are called head nodders too. Some people call them trial closes. If you can get people in your story to start nodding their head because they see a version of themselves or a version of their story in their life, when you ask them to buy the membership, they're already nodding their head. Mm-hmm. But if you can't get them to nod their head and they can't relate to that, and then you're doing something very dangerous. You're future pacing. You're trying to teach them what they should know later in the future. And that's really hard to convince people because they just not lived through that. So the story leading into the pitch, the more head nods you get through the story, the more relatability to their circumstance, much more likely to get them to join at the end of it.
Have you read Never Split the Difference by Voss?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Voss, so he's like,
the FBI guy.
Try to get them from you're going from you're right to that's right.
Yes. Like, yes. And that's what you're trying to, yes. And
that's right.
And like, what's easier to negotiate with, like a teenager or someone who's literally one chapter behind you in the story? Right. Mm-hmm. So I think, and again, if you target someone, you will eventually get everyone. All you're doing is when you say no to an avatar, or you say yes to an avatar, you're saying yes to a group of people. You're not saying no to the other people. Those other people represent a future opportunity. It's just, this is my A priority opportunity, and this is going to be my B opportunity. Like, you're eventually maybe going to set something up to go back and help the IT guys coming out of college, someone a little bit whatever, so they don't make the mistake of going to career. But entrepreneurs have a problem sometimes. Instead of helping people solve a problem you've solved, we go back and we try to save the people from making the mistake in the first place.
Right.
That is death in online business. You can't do that, because if you're going back and saying, I wish I just went straight into tech and I hadn't have wasted 5 or 6 years, and that's not going to work. You can't save anybody. You got to let people set the house on fire and then run in with the extinguisher.
Forgive your past
Exactly.
self, move forward.
That's exactly right. So I think let's go there. Let's stay there. So let's
Sure.
just straighten out the avatar there first.
Yeah.
And now that we know the avatar, we can talk about the avatar correctly of who it actually is. It's going to resonate with your story for your story pitch. What other questions you have? You're now in the game. You're sending emails. You're doing a podcast. You're about to launch this thing in the world. With that avatar in mind now, what's some of the questions you might have or biggest struggles you're facing?
Their flow through the site, through just the whole customer journey.
Okay.
I've got this kind of mapped out in a Visio to kind of like help me visualize it. I'm a very visual person, so I require being able to see it and to be able to picture where they're at so that I can speak to them in that place, in that whole customer journey. And one of the problems are one of the things I'm really kind of like stopped up on is when I'm doing Monday through Friday email and I'm doing a Saturday podcast email. So I've got 6 emails scheduled through the week.
Cool. Well done.
What is how do I, as far as the calls to action on those? Because
what are they about? What are they trying to get people to do?
Yeah, I have some topics, but I'm like, how do I turn this into an action? You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm struggling. Cool.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's hard. Like I mean, we really preach daily emailing and daily posting. That's something that we really hammer hard because you got to be in their inbox when they're ready to purchase. And if you're only sending 1 email a week, you're not going to be there. You're going to get lost in the noise. So you're doing a really good job. That's actually a fear point most people never get past, and you're already crushing that. So you're doing the actions. But
can I give you I can give you a couple samples of what these topics are. So
let me back up to the flow first.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back to this. And then you tell me some samples and see if I answer the question in a way. Okay. So there's 3 phases that all customers go through. Okay. There's discovery. That's the first phase, right? That's when they find you, and they find you in a lot of different ways. We can talk about that. How you get found is very unique to each business. You might be a podcast guest, like you heard me on the Benham Brothers podcast. That's how you discovered me. You might run ads. You might speak on stages. You might write blog posts and they get found in Google, whatever it is. They discover you. Okay. Then we take them through a process. Okay. When they discover you, our goal is to get them to opt in. We try to give them something free so they get that name and email.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lead magnet.
And then there will be an autoresponder that triggers at that point. It's usually we try to get set up at least 7 emails in the beginning of your journey. Yep. And those emails, that email campaign is designed to take them from discovery to purchase. Okay. Discovery to purchase. So this is the second stop on the journey is purchase. That means they fill out their credit card information and they join your membership. Okay. Now, the next sequence of events is going to be purchase to success. All right. So purchase to success in a membership community should also be automated. There is going to be live components to it, but it should also be automated. But that's automated more through again, an email campaign and your content, like your courses, your trainings, your whatever. And it's supplemented by community events, like a community call, like a Q&A. Okay. So we've got discovery to purchase, purchase to success. There is an email sequence that's set up basically inside the Flip Lifestyle Blueprint. You can see the template for it. I have a 7 email sequence that's designed to automate some of that discovery to purchase. The purchase point also, that's where webinars and events live. So right at the point of purchase is where online events like webinars or like my challenge, I think you came to, or something like that. Like you can do live events to really push people over the edge. And then you've got to get them to success. So that's the whole flow you're building. That's what it's supposed to look like. There's also a training in there inside the blueprint called the $1 Million Membership Funnel. You should definitely look at that because it's going to really lay out all the systems. It's very visual. It's a PowerPoint presentation. So you'll dig that. Now, I call that the automated tier, right? That's all that should be set up so where it can happen in an automated way. The other side of the coin is what you're talking about, which is my broadcast strategy, my weekly, what am I emailing on an everyday thing, real time, what am I sending them? What are the subject lines? What are the calls to action? Okay. So let's just put discovery, purchase, success over to the side because that's a completely different issue. That's actually pretty easy and it's really detailed, covered inside the blueprint.
Got it.
Okay.
I'll dig into that.
There you go. Now the broadcast side, which is what I call like either weekly scheduling or daily scheduling. I do it pretty much daily. Like we'll meet on Monday. We'll talk about what we want to email out, that week. There's a couple things that we like to send out. One is content, old content. Now you don't have a lot of old content yet.
I have some. I've got some YouTube videos and things that I.
There you go.
Some tips.
So, right.
Yeah.
So once you get to about 100 pieces of content, you pretty much have infinite emails that you can send because you can just. It's new to them every time they come back up again, right?
Yeah.
So content's a big deal. Anytime you do a content email, you should have 2 links. A content email, the first part of the email should tell a story. Everything should tell a story. So like whatever the story of that video is, whether it's a testimonial, a customer, something you're teaching, what's the story of that thing? And then a link to the content, right? Now we're promoting our content, which is helping us get seen more. Algorithms trigger because our email list goes to that. And whenever I send a content email, I always PS my membership. So I might say, PS, if you want to go, like this video will teach you something, but if you want to go even deeper, check out my membership, or I can teach you how to become an IT professional. Click here. So that way, every email that has content attached to it is going to be a breadcrumb to bring them back to a sales page. Okay. You have a fork in the road at the end of that email. Do you click the content to go watch the YouTube video? Cool. Our relationship is getting better. Or PS, I got something for sale. I'm going to sell every day. If I'm not selling every day, I'm not making any money every day. Right. So that's the first emails that we send. The second type of broadcast emails that we send are promotions. Like, so let's say, for example, we got Father's Day next month. Okay. Hey, dads, give your family the gift of a new IT career. And we're literally going to promote our membership for like a week. Right now, those emails are usually driven by success stories, testimonials, but they will be driven at the beginning of your promotions by your story. So you'll break your story up into 3 or 4 days, email them every day that week, and maybe that's a whole thing that you got to do. And then the third type of broadcast that we send are documentary. I think right now in the beginning of your business, you need to document what you're creating. Like you need to say, man, I knew when my IT journey started that I was going to have to adopt a mindset of I can learn that. It's not about what I didn't know. It's what about I needed to learn. So you just tell that story. And I just made this new training inside my membership about how you can overcome that fear. Click here to get a free trial to the membership, and you can watch that training, and if you can keep it if you want to. Right. So these are like literal documenting everything you do, like whatever you made this week for your membership, whatever course you recorded, whatever you're about to do, you can document that. And then the next thing is basically, what do you want? Like ask people things like, what are you struggling with in your IT journey? What are you frustrated by in your IT journey? What are you doing? Hit reply. I'm listening. Right.
Yeah.
That's all we do, man. Like that's basically our entire template that what we do. And we've been doing that for 10 years in multiple 6 and 7 figure businesses and 1 8-figure business is just rotate through those things. Get your content back out there. I think last week we sent 5 emails. 4 of them were old podcasts and just straight up like, hey, I bet you missed this one. It was 3 years ago, but man, it's a doozy. That Dana Morrison, it was a good interview. You need to go back and listen to that. So I'm going to be sending you out in 2027.
Awesome.
Right. Like still. And then PS, would you like to do what Dana's doing? Jump in here with us.
Right. Got it.
So that's the 2 tracks, man. Just automate the discovery purchase to success. The broadcast is just those 4 categories and just mix and match and have fun. And then remember, there's no wrong answer. Did you send an email and did it have a link to something you created? Hopefully for sale. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the rules. There's no wrong answers on top of that, dude.
That clears up my email question.
There you go, man.
I'll just make this as a template. I have templates for each of my days.
Yeah.
So I'll just go in and edit those templates to remind me to make sure I'm hitting on those bullets.
For sure. There's an email marketing training I did at a live event too inside the Flipped Lifestyle Blueprint. I think it's in the Blueprint, but it might be over in that Flipped Lifestyle Experience training. But it's a live event that I taught about email marketing, and I go over broadcasts and autoresponders a little bit. So cool. Actually it's and then there's a second video where I go through different categories of the kinds of emails you send as broadcasts. So there's also a video training inside the community if you want to go back and review, and you can always listen to this again as well. So we're getting close then to launch. Like this is what we got to, launch. Like what does launch mean to you? The word, like, how do you feel like you need to launch? And like, what are your plans right now to get this out in front of more people?
Done, not perfect.
Always.
So I have some content that I want to finish up, but it's not in a place. I could hear it in Eric's voice on Monday. We had a coaching call.
Eric's one of our coaches. Yeah.
He's great. And I could hear it in his voice. I had said something about dropping off a content piece, and he immediately says, you're going to go back and finish that, right? And so it's like, I could hear like, oh, this is something that people usually mess up on. I'm like, right. Okay, I am.
Isn't it nice to have coaches who actually run businesses and know where the pitfalls are?
So yeah, man. I mean, and I've taken some sticky notes from today, but this is what the work looks like. And if work is invisible, it will destroy you. So death to invisible work. If you've never read the book Scrum by Jeff Sutherland, great book. Yeah. I have things that I'm tidying up, but I feel like I'm at a place where I can start putting people through this process and testing this out and kind of getting this rolling, which means, I guess, leads me to another question. I know, like, as far as ads go, we don't want to just throw money to the wind when it comes, because ads can get expensive. Mm-hmm. But I do have set aside some pool that I can utilize to help beta test how the message resonates with people. Would you recommend that, or would you just say, hey, focus on this content, just focus on building organically? What advice would you give?
I think you can do both. There's actually something interesting about ads. You kind of do have to set some ad money on fire to figure out what works. So like, you don't want to just throw it out there. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely think you should have a nice conservative ad strategy of getting people to something. I mean, honestly, the best strategy is ads to a weekly webinar until it works. And then, like, not a bunch of money, just maybe $10-20 a day until you get your feet wet on what you're doing, where are you putting stuff. YouTube has boosting posts basically now. You can click a button and you could do a video and show it to people searching for IT search terms. So that YouTube's a great place. I know some people that are succeeding there on YouTube. Maybe start there and learn that platform, learn that system. So you got one, just do ads in one place though. Don't try to do 20 different things. Like, test multiple ads on one platform first. And also too, man, you're a heck of a freaking podcast interview, dude. Like, there's so many podcasts out there that already have audience, and you have a podcast that are about IT and tech. I would go write down the 100 podcasts that you can, for the top 100 podcasts for IT and tech professionals. And I would start reaching out to those people and be like, hey, I'd love to have you on my show, invite them to your show, and then ask to be on their show after you put them on your show, and see if you can start getting some of that organic, like that. That's a big boost, is when you can start doing things like guesting and like meeting people. You might even find someone that's like, yeah, man, I got like 10,000 people listening to my podcast, but I ain't made a dime off of it. And you're like, well, hold on, why don't you be an affiliate? You tell people about my membership, and I'll, if they join my $50 a month membership, I'll give you $25 every time somebody joins.
And Kajabi's got the ability to do that, right, Bill?
That's exactly right. Kajabi's got the affiliate program right there. You can set it up super easy. So building those relationships, that's a great organic strategy. And then, of course, your content strategy, like, you just got to write it down. Like, next 2 years, I'm not missing a podcast. We're going to see where this thing goes. Like, it's coming every week. And I'm going to have the best IT podcast on the planet. And I'm going to go out there and build this thing organically. So I don't really recommend anybody do anything except what they can afford and what they're willing to do. Like, the answer when you're ready to launch is, the only way to succeed is to roll up your sleeves and open your wallet. That's it.
Yeah.
If you can do both, do them. Right. So if you can run some ads, you have a great content strategy where you're just like committed, like, I'm going to do this to 100 episodes no matter what. And then get out there and make what it's called a Dream 100 list. It's an old marketing strategy. You go search for the 100 best YouTube channels, podcasters, whatever they are.
There's a tool for that too. What's the name of that tool? Do you remember? There's a podcast like that tells you.
I tell you what I do. I go to what is it called? Podcast charts or something like that. And I just go to Apple and I look up categories and I write them down. Like, well, these are the people that ranked by the algorithm. So the algorithm is rewarding them. I want to be rewarded by the algorithm too. So if I can get them on my podcast and I can go on theirs, the algorithm will probably reward me. Right. So I'm just looking for the straight results on that stuff, man. Or YouTube channels are good too. Are you putting your podcast on YouTube as well?
Oh yeah, they're going to. I'm using Libsyn, so they're going to
Oh, it goes there
YouTube,
automatically.
Apple, Spotify, and the Libsyn. And I'm
Yeah.
having an issue with them actually auto populating to Kajabi, which I got to reach out to their support because I want to have them on my homepage or some way
Gotcha.
to easily get to them.
For sure.
Yeah.
So like if you do those three things, like that's good. Like you don't have to have a big launch. You can just open the doors, go out and find your first couple members, right? If you've got some people in your personal network that you think would like to get into IT, ask them to come in and join. Don't be afraid to give away something free so you can get people some results, right? Get the launch out there, get it open, get those people doing that, and then use those other three strategies to kind of stack together to kind of get this thing rolling and launch it out. Now, if you want to go for broke and you want to do like a big launch, then you could literally do a webinar that's like how to become an IT pro, even if you went another path in your career in the past, right? That'd be a good headline for a webinar. And you could then get in there into the ads and figure out your targeting and let it go out there and just say, I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to try to buy 100 people onto this webinar and see what it converts at, right? Totally a good thing to do there too. But I would try to get at least 1 or 2 customers first before you did that, so you can dial in your offer a little bit and then do like the big launch or whatever. We more open the doors and say, we're open. If you want to come in, come in. Then once we get some traction, we're like, now let's put some gas behind this and make the fire happen.
Got it.
Cool stuff, dude. Well, listen, man, that was a great conversation, man. We covered a lot of ground there, dude. We covered avatars. We covered anything else, everything in between. But man, you got a lot of great stuff going. You're putting in the work. You're doing what you need to do. Now we just got to get eyeballs on the stuff that you've already created. And before we go, man, I'll give you a shout out here to everybody out there. Maybe there's somebody listening going, well, I don't want to start an online business. I just want to switch careers and become an IT professional. So tell everybody your website, Dana, before we go.
Yeah, itpath.net. And here's what you can do if you want to find all the ways to contact me. You go to itpath.net/media. And I tell you what, there's an opt-in right there. And if you just hit that opt-in, you're going to get all the links straight into your email so that you can just have it in your pocket to reference anytime you want. So
nice,
itpath.net.
itpath.net.
Let's claim your journey in IT.
All right, y'all. That wraps up my coaching call with Dana Morrison. Man, he has been doing the work, y'all, like rolling up his sleeves, investing his time and treasure into his online dream. And he's taking all of that life, all of that experience that's been bottled up inside of him for the last 25 years of his career. And he's going to go out and help other people write their story, a story that I could never write. Like, I don't know anything about IT. Like, I could never create a business, even though I know how to create businesses to help IT professionals start their second career in IT. Like, I could never do that. But because he's in the Flip Lifestyle community, because he's taking his steps through the Flip Lifestyle blueprint, he is equipped now to go out and throw his pebble in the pond and call his ripple with his online business over at itpath.net. And that's what we do at Flip Lifestyle, man. We help you find and use your God-given gifts to go out and start, build, and grow online businesses, online incomes of your own. We'd love to help you too. We got a ton of free resources and we've got paid resources, community and coaching as well over at flippedlifestyle.com. So check that out. If you've never been to the website, pull over, stop working out in the gym, quit chasing kids around while you're listening to podcasts. Go to FLIPPED lifestyle.com and check out all the crazy stuff that we got for you for your online journey too. That's all the time we have for this week, guys. Until next time, get out there, take action, do whatever it takes to flip your life, and you'll make it happen. See you then.